This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Hansen, management consultant, with me co-host Christine Salvo, therapist, certified mediator, and certified hypnotherapist.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, man. What a week. I am so blessed to have a team and a circle of friends to work with that they just make life easier. But what are the specific dynamics and how can you go about being in relationship with your friends while also doing business? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And you know what? Christine and I actually started out as belly dance sisters.
Yes, we sure did.
So we met in December 2014 in a belly dance class, and we just sort of clicked, and we kind of warmed up. We actually had a kind of a slow warmer. It wasn't immediate. First, we were kind of belly dance activity partners, and then we realized that we liked the same things, and we were both spiritual, and it just kind of grew into what it is today. But I remember, gosh, what was it? Maybe 2017, maybe 16, you invited me to your house and you wanted some coaching from me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one session where I don't even have the notes or remember the details from the session, but that was the point in our relationship where it went from just friendship and activity partners to a little bit of business. Mm-hmm. And that kind of changes the dynamic just slightly. It deepens the dynamic, but it also, if your friendship isn't strong, sometimes it can be a little dicey.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I would kind of add to that is the friends in business kind of idea. We kind of stumbled upon it, but there's a lot of people that are doing it on purpose, right? Like how we started our show together. But as you're kind of alluding to, there becomes a deeper intimacy, because as much as we love our friends, that coaching session you did with me, I specifically remember it.
Oh, and, good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I could probably pull up the notes if I looked for them, but I didn't have time right now. So the idea though was that you had me look at these quadrants and you had me kind of identify the cows, the stars, and really kind of looking at things. And it's funny because that same coaching session is still relevant in my life today.
Yeah. In fact, we had that conversation a couple of weeks ago about your current quadrants.
Yes. And I'm about to book you again. So I think this friends and business idea it really does have to be someone you trust, because when you start talking your business life, it talks about your financial life. That's not necessarily friend information. Depending on who you are and what your boundaries are and the level of friend that is to you. But even my best friend in the whole world, we rarely talk about my finances. We rarely talk about hers unless something big or small, something kind of fundamental happens. But it's not in detail. Nobody knows the account to my balance or my account balance and vice versa. So when we're using our friends in business, I think that's a really important aspect to consider is, do I trust this person enough to want to go deeper? Because once we start mixing the two, you can't really go back, right?
Exactly. You can't go back. It's like once you are in business, it becomes a different layer. It becomes, it's kind of like when you go on a date and you realize you really, really like this person and you spend the night for the first time. Mm-hmm. It's like that no going back, part of the relationship. So now, rather than having it being the spend the night, it's you've seen inside my bank account. Mm-hmm. You've seen inside how I make a living. You know me deeper than 99.9% of this world. this is different.
It is different. And so I really think the most fundamental issue here is trust. Because also when you can't go back, we have to trust that the person keep it confidential, but also that we don't, in a lot of cases, make it only a business. Because that's a really easy thing too, right? You're friends first and now you're just business partners. Or I'm just hiring you for the service, but now it's a conflict of interest to be friends. And so there's a few things that we really kind of need to weigh out before we think of using our friends for business, doing business with our friends, and starting businesses with our friends.
Right, exactly. And in my case, I've always worked from home. My office is my home, and my roommate is in with an earshot of all of my calls. My roommate she knows when I'm in my radio show. She knows when I'm consulting. She knows that I'm billing. She doesn't do business with me, so she doesn't see inside of that, but she knows the activity level that's around that. And so that's a deepener as well, because there's a certain level of impact. If I were to leave the house and then come home, she wouldn't have that insight. But as a roommate who has a business happening in the house, there's a certain level of empathy there that takes place. There's, Diane's on a call, but, we're not going to, have a, loud discussion in the kitchen during the conference call. There's a different level there. And when you're doing business around or with a friend, there's different layers. So doing business around is kind of layer one, and layer two is doing business with, and that takes it to a whole other level. So I remember that, very brief, I had my roommate edit my book, and the dynamic was immediately different. So even though she's done business around, suddenly there was something to be accountable to your friend that was deeper than we're meeting at the movies at 7.
Right.
And something that there's weight around. You're financially on the hook for your business. So the business that you do with your friend has weight. It has consequence for failure. It has celebration for success. It has that deeper realm behind it. And ultimately, I decided I did not want to do business with my roommate, because there would be no getting away from that, but I can have my executive assistant come into the house 2 days a week, and we can work in that capacity 2 days a week, and then she leaves. So this is another whole layer too, when people work with their spouses.
Right. And it's similar, but a little bit different, because a spouse already should know your financial profile. They kind of know, what kind of business you do, the hours you work. They may not know the intensity or level of work that you typically do. They don't necessarily know work ethic. We just assume. Very few of us follow our partners into work and watch them all day. So right. It's really hard to gauge, but you have an idea. You imagine the job keeps them around, so they must do a pretty good job, or based on their kind of status or level or promotion or title, you know that they have a certain level of responsibility and accountability in those elements. But I'm really kind of looking at this idea of communication. So this actually even includes our multi-level marketing friends. So I have friends that I swear I haven't heard from in 10 years until they're selling the next weight loss shake. I swear. That's the new trend. And I'm like, how many weight loss shakes are there? Because everyone has a different one and they all are the best thing ever. So I won't hear from somebody for 5 years, and all of a sudden I'm getting this message like, how are you? How are the kids? And I'm like, hi, how are you? And it's like, so I'm starting a challenge in 30 days. It's only $500 to buy in. No worries. Anyways, do you want in? It's just
straight for the kill.
We really have to acknowledge our multi-level marketing friends and helping them understand that friends in business concept too. Because when we're recruiting our friends to be in business, that changes the dynamics as well. Now, there's some people that I've shown up to their parties, their MLM parties, knowing I had a budget. Okay, I'm going to spend $100 whether I need it or not to help my friend. But I'm not a repeat customer.
Right.
I'm going to the one party. I'm probably not going to book a party. I'm probably not going to come back to the next party. I'm probably not going to fall in love with the product. I'm going to help you out once, and then you're really going to have to kind of make your way, right? And so even friends in business is this idea of how much support do we show? What's our limit? Knowing our boundaries. And I think it's appropriate to have this conversation beforehand. Like, hey, Diane, you're going to sell this weight loss shake. I'm going to buy one round for 30 days. I probably will not either use it and or buy it again. No offense. I like my own products. I know what works for my body. I'll give it a shot. I'm not saying I won't, but I'm going to support you this one time. But I don't want this to turn into my next party's in 2 weeks. Will you be there? My next party's in 2 weeks. Will you be there? Because I don't really have an unlimited amount of time or money or interest in continuing to support this venture, but I'll give you the one shot. Does that kind of land on you at all? Have you ever been in those shoes?
Oh my goodness. So when I was 21 years old, I got caught in a Tupperware loop. And I call it the Tupperware loop. And for probably about 5 years after this happened, I carried a little Tupperware container on my keychain to remind me to just say no. So what happened is I decided to support a friend and go to a party. And then I decided to support that friend again and throw a party. And then because everyone at my party decided to have a party, I had to go to their party and their party and their party and their party. And then I went to their party. So then all these other people had parties and I was on the invite list. So I went to that party and I have Tupperware coming out of my ears. My entire social life for a year was going to Tupperware parties when I don't cook.
So do me a favor. If you ever write a memoir, one chapter has to be called the Tupperware
loop. I'm serious. It was terrible. And the thing is my husband did cook. So he was thrilled. I was going to all these parties and he would send me with a list of what he wanted. And I would be like, okay, honey, I'll totally get what you want. But I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't set the boundary. And it's hard because I have a friend and it doesn't matter what kind of business they start. I want to support them, but I always remember in the back of my head, the Tupperware loop,
right?
that I just need to, like you say, I'm going to come, I'm going to support you. I'm going to try it out, but it doesn't mean I'm going to become your next superstar salesperson.
And or your number one customer.
Or your number one customer. But even being the number one customer, the goal is to make you their number one salesperson.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, I'm a coach, so you would be great for this. Oh, you would be so amazing. Imagine yourself making, $90,000 a month. And I just don't have the emotional or mental energy for it. But yeah, it should be a friends in business. It can be beautiful. It can be a disaster.
Yeah, and it really has the potential to end friendships. And
it does.
And that's where really kind of digging underneath the covers on this and being able to set those boundaries and have those honest conversations beforehand can really save you. I've definitely had the friendship and then turned into the customer. And I didn't like how that felt. That's just not, the only time I hear from you is when you're having another party or a sale or starting another cleanse and I'm so glad you're doing that, but I miss my friend. So I think when we're really talking about friends and business, and I'll use our relationship as an example. You did the session. We completed the session. We exit out of the business relationship back into the friendship.
Yeah.
When we have our next session, we're going to enter in. And when we're in that session, hey, I'm paying for your service. You're going to give a certain thing. I know what I want. You know what you want to give. And when we exit that, of course, as my friend, you can follow up. Hey, how's that going? How, you know, blah, 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 whatever. But we're not staying. So we have to make sure that when we dip our toes in, we take our feet all the way back out, and we remember that our friends really just aren't the people waiting there trying to spend money on us, and that real friends, they're supportive when they can be. Not everybody has the money for $100 in Tupperware, but they are supportive when they can be, and trying not to exploit those relationships and eventually ruining them.
Right, exactly. And when friends have an idea and they want to go into business together, setting boundaries around that business. I mean, there's still the step in, step out, even though you may be running a clothing store together. So say you've decided that you and your friend are going to go in, and she has great fashion sense and you have great fashion sense, but you also have financial sense and she has marketing sense. And it just makes sense for you to go in together. Mm-hmm. Setting up when is it business and when is it friends? Yeah. Are you going to bring up your clothing store when you're out with your other friends, having drinks, watching a movie, doing friend things? No, that is not the opportunity to have an impromptu board meeting.
Right.
So the boundaries are very important, even when you are in business with your friends, to not make the entire relationship about the business, because what happens if the business fails? Mm-hmm. Are you still friends?
Right.
If something happens and the market changes and you have to make a decision to close your business or pivot and change the way you're doing business, maybe you were a retail store where people came in, but now sales are down, you can't necessarily afford your rent, so you decide to rent a storage space and do things online. Mm-hmm. Is your friendship going to be able to withstand changes in your business? And through that separation and, you know, recognizing who you are as people, mm-hmm. that's the core of it right there is right. You can meet someone brilliant and you can start out in business with them, and when the business is done, it's dissolved, it's done.
Right.
You can meet someone brilliant and start a business, find out you have all these other things in common. Business dissolves, friendship stays.
Right.
You can start a business with a friend, business goes great, you're in business with your friends, you keep boundaries. You have no boundaries, you can kill that friendship by constantly intruding into, you know, what should be a balanced life.
So let's kind of bring this into the workplace too. So we're talking really a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of MLMs. Let's bring it into kind of more of a working environment with the beehive, right? With everyone there. And you met at work and you have a friendship. I hear this all the time. I actually had an appointment earlier this week that was just like, this person I work with is my friend. We're not friends anymore. And work is HE double hockey sticks. Like, it is so uncomfortable. We know each other's secrets. At any time, we're both terrified that if that person gets mad, they can kind of drop the other foot because there's a lack of trust. The friendship is resolved. And now it almost feels like warfare. So even friendship in the actual business, and I know as a consultant and a business coach, how do you handle that within your corporations and your clients?
You know, I have to draw a firm line. I have to draw a firm line between what we're doing that's business and any talk of friendship outside of our business relationship. And I have been fortunate to have clients that we're really endeared to each other, but we're also not going to meet up outside of a business capacity. Mm-hmm. So,
and maybe until your work together is complete and then you transition.
Exactly. Although I don't know that I would be in that position with any of my clients, because I've held that clear boundary of if we are connecting, it is business, you are paying me for my time.
Right.
That becomes a very slippery slope when you start out as clients. Now, when you're working, and so I do have my very best friend in the whole wide world since 1999, I met at work. And I remember the first day that I saw her, and I was my first day at work, and we were crammed together in this little bitty space. Like one person should have been there, they crammed two. And I introduced myself to her, and, you know, she was just very conservatively dressed that day. She had kind of like horn-rimmed glasses on. She looked very, very conservative. My first thought was, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get along with her at all. And it was strictly, you know, this project, that project, this project, that project. But slowly we started opening up to each other, and a little more, and a little more. And then we started hanging out. And when it was work, it was work. There was a divide. And when it was fun, it was fun. And work was really fun because we were in that same little space where two people, you know, were crammed into one. And we had a blast. And I actually carried her to my next job. So I got laid off. She left. I got laid off. When when I found my next company and she wasn't there anymore, I moved her over to work at this next agency that we were working with. And we worked there too. And it was awesome. It was work. It was fun. It was all that. But I also didn't bring up work stuff other than the jab, you know, isn't that kind of funny? I didn't bring up the business of work in our personal relationship.
Well, and I would say that that's a pretty...
I didn't take the work home.
It's a pretty fortunate situation. It's also unique, and it doesn't always work out that way. Yeah. So that's a lovely story, right? And I have some friends that I think I've worked with somewhere along the way, possibly. I'd have to think about it for a minute. But I love that that's kind of like your guys' friendship romance, right? That's your when you met.
And that was the start. So the important thing was that was the start. So when that agency folded and had to change the way they were doing business, I moved to Texas. She stayed in Southern California. We stayed in touch. I visited, she visited. We still see each other once a year. But it's as dynamics change, the dynamics between two people need to change as well. And there's been breakdowns. There's been, like any relationship, there's been friendship, you know, kind of, you know, conflict.
Right.
And all of that. And also you have to, when you work with your friends, you have to let go of that air of obligation of just because I have something, you're definitely going to work with me.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm under no auspices that I'll ever work with her again. But we've supported each other, you know, and through all of this. But I've had friends that I've hired to do work for me that flat out walked out on the business. Flat out walked out, turned over the client, said, I can't do this. Done. And separating the business from the friendship, I was able to say, okay, you did that. That's your thing. We need a little time and space of repair. But when you have that communication, and I think that's where the successful friends in business come, and Forbes talks about this as well. That's where the successful friends in business come, is that communication is impeccable. There's impeccable boundaries. There's impeccable communication. There's, you know, not a violation of space. There's a lot, I mean, so much attention paid to the difference between the relationships.
Yeah. I was going to say clear and set roles is really important. Whether you're attending your friend's kind of, Tupperware party, if you want to do a radio show with your friend, if you want to actually start a boutique or a kind of business or a podcast, kind of like really sitting down and going, what do both of us bring to the table? What are the ways that we're different, and what are our strengths in that ways? And what are the ways that we're the same where we might actually step on toes? So those are really awesome. First. Second, expectations. These are my expectations for how this goes. And just like Diane said, so this is what it's going to look like for our friendship for a while. We probably will only be business focused while we're getting things going. And we can both accept that. But we should probably keep our social lives a tad bit different for a while so that we can kind of prioritize. And also kind of those limits so that we're not getting people upset and they're not getting upset with us of, hey, I'd love to come to your party. I love that you're doing some MLM and I really want to support you. And here's my boundaries and my intentions. So kind of setting that frame of, I'm not to be bothered after this. I'm here to have a good time. I'm just a guest. I'm going to spend money. And then I want to be kind of left alone unless I come to you and want more.
So setting those expectations are really important. And then on the part of the person who, invited the friend into the business as well, realize that this was your original passion. If you're not forming it together and you don't have that joint passion, that the one who has the passion also really has to keep that passion in check when it comes to respecting the friend. Because the friend didn't come in with that original passion. That friend came in maybe to support you, maybe because they needed a job and you were offering one, something along those lines. But the buy-in level will never be the same as the founder who birthed the baby. And realizing that if you're not forming something together, if you're bringing somebody in, is that, be prepared for, what happens if the friend decides they don't want to do this anymore? What happens if the friend messes up? What happens if you mess up?
Right.
What is,
I
what
think
is
you're
the
really hitting on
there?
it. Friends in business actually requires a different level of maturity.
Absolutely. And it's, I'm just reminded of the lemonade stands growing up and, hey, let's go do this and let's go do that. And let's make a little business together. And that's really well and good and fun, but it's kid stuff. This isn't kid stuff when you
I
get,
remember my
up.
kids made a little cupcake stand and they sold cupcakes one day, and all the kids that were involved ended up getting a fight over the money after because no one could agree who got what. And it was actually kind of fun to watch because they were like, well, I bought the cake mix. Well, my mom bought the frosting. Well, my mom cooked it in the house. And they were all actually right in some form or another. But it ended up actually in an immediate conflict between kids of who gets the majority of the money because it wasn't even.
Yep.
Right.
And it wasn't discussed beforehand either. So those parents also didn't say, oh, wait, we're all contributing to this. What's the money going to look like before we even start this? So if you are considering going into business with your friend, definitely lay the ground rules in advance and, be emotionally prepared for a wild ride because it can be.
Absolutely.
This has been Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Hansen, management consultant.
And I'm Christine Salvo, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified mediator, and certified hypnotherapist. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. This is Business Therapy.